January 25th meeting of the New Smyrna Beach Airport Advisory Board. If we have anyone in attendance who has their cell phone in their pocket, if they would silence that now, we would appreciate that very much. Tammy, do you want to call the roll?
Yes. Chair Dempsey?
Here.
Vice Chair Starley?
Here.
Member Lester?
Here.
Member Mabe?
Here.
Member Norval?
Here.
We have a full house. Next item is presentation. Do we have any presentations, or we're just going to save that for the manager update when you guys do that? Okay. Any public input? Ms. Miser, do you have anything that you would like to share with us? Anything from the FAA control tower? No? Okay, we're good there. All right. So the next item is the consent agenda, the approval of the Airport Advisory Board meeting minutes from November 2nd. I've gone through them and found them to be pretty accurate of that meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second.
Second.
Can we clarify who made the motion?
David made the first motion,
Okay.
and I think Celeste made the second.
Yes. Chair Dempsey?
Proof?
Vice Chair Starley?
Yes.
Member Lester?
Yes.
Member Mabe?
Yes.
Member Norval?
Yes.
And consider the approval of the Airport Advisory Board special meeting minutes from November 15th, and I'll defer to you on those minutes because I wasn't here for that.
Well, they likewise appear to me to be accurate.
Okay, so I
Make a
move we
motion to
approve them?
approve.
Yeah,
Second.
Gary and Celeste.
Chair Dempsey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Starley?
Yes.
Member Lester?
Yes.
Member Mabe?
Yes.
Member Norval?
Yes.
Arden, which one of you gentlemen are going to do the report?
I'll start, and Jacob and I are going to take turns rolling through it.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Chair Dempsey, and thank you all to the board for being here today. So here is a brief overview of the topics we're going to be discussing today: noise, capital improvement projects, our local projects, other than CIP, property management, the RFP for a fuel supplier, and then we have some other items. So I know it's been a lengthy process, but the noise analysis report is being wrapped up for next month's presentation to the City Commission on February 27th. We have also scheduled a special meeting for the advisory board to review and make recommendations to these findings, and that is on March 7th, 2024. And I believe we have scheduled that with each of you, and just making sure that you are aware of that. Same time, 2 p.m., March 7th. We continue to meet monthly with EPIC. You have in your packet some reports from the 12 months ending December 2023. You have any comments or questions on that report? That is basically just some charts. That's what we share with EPIC and the city every time after each meeting, just to kind of review the data. This data is pulled from VerTower and compiled, and it just kind of helps us gauge how we're doing. There are some, you could definitely see a downward trend from the beginning of the year for total flyovers of inland shores. There's, on occasion, you'll see a little spike. What we see attribute to that is, like we had the last couple of days, it's usually the perfect storm of events. It can be the use of runway 1129, construction, or other activities on the airfield that can change the traffic pattern, weather. And also, we've got a new semester that just started, so you've got some newer students at Embry-Riddle who, you know, they have a new instructor, new students, new instructors, and so when you have that perfect storm, we will see an uptick sometimes in those flyovers. Any questions about this report?
Can we go back to the first part, the 150 update and the meetings? So it's going, the final presentation's going in front of the city commission. Then it comes in to us for review and findings. And then after that, do our review and recommendations go to the city commission for their final vote of, there's a final vote from the city commission, right?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I could be wrong, but not that I'm aware of. Our take is that we're going to implement these based on the advisory board recommendations and input from the users. We've had input from the community. We're going to have input from the consultants. Now we need to determine, let's review those recommendations, and we're going to be able to determine what makes sense, what doesn't. There's some recommendations that may not be viable for us. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss those once we see the recommendations, and then we have to sit down in that special meeting together and really talk about those. And I'm hoping that we can have some recommendations from you as to what, the advisory board wants to see.
And then they go to, when does the commission hear what our recommendations are?
That's a great question. I have not been asked to present them back. We're just going to, our plan is if there's something we can do, you recommend it, and we have input from the aviation community, and if it makes sense and the FAA approves of it, we'll do it.
Okay.
The presentation that the consultant's going to do to the commission on the 27th, do we know what time that's going to be?
Yes, that's 6:30 p.m. is the start time on the
Okay,
27th.
It's not one of those prior ones where they
No.
start sometimes around 5 or
No.
6 o'clock
No.
and they do preliminary stuff. It's going to go right to the
It'll be one of
6:30.
the first items on the agenda. So they'll have the opening, they'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I believe it's a special presentation. So I believe it's even before public comments.
Yeah.
They go right into that
Right.
presentation.
Okay. And during the course of that day preceding that, we'll have opportunity to get with you individually and just kind of peruse the report so that we can be a little bit prepared going in there at 6:30 that evening.
Correct.
Okay. And then on March 7th, we'll have the benefit of having seen the consultant do the presentation we'll had the benefit of going through it with you. Let me ask you this. When we meet with you on the 27th, is the consultant going to be a part of those individual meetings as well?
I'm sorry, on the 27th?
Yes.
No, but I will have gone through it by then. I've gone through it about 8 times already.
With-
So I'll be very,
with
very
them.
familiar with them.
Okay.
And so, yes.
Okay.
We'll be able to speak. And if there's a question that comes up, he'll be in town. We just haven't specifically
Okay,
set
I'm just-
aside because we felt by then we'll have a really firm grasp on it.
Okay. So we'll have time during the day on the 27th to review it. They'll present it at the very beginning of the regular commission meeting on the 27th. And are they primarily going to be addressing their questions to the consultants? Is that they're presenting their product at that time? I'm talking about at the commission meeting on the 27th at 6:30.
They will be.
So-
There may be some questions for us or for me, but at this point, it is focused on the consultants' recommendations and their findings and their recommendations. And then beyond that, then he's going to turn it over to, the airport as far as what can we do, what can't we do.
Will there be public commentary after they do their,
It is, but it's just the standard 3-minute,
no question and answer, just comment,
Correct.
making their point?
correct.
Okay, all right. All right, so then we'll have had a week or 10 days there after that, and then we get together and we look at this thing and discuss it and see if we want to make formal recommendations from this board to the city. That's what we're talking about for the
Yes.
7th.
Yes.
Okay, that's the plan. Just wanted to get the team
Yes.
all at the
Yes.
table on the same.
If there is an item on there that requires city commission approval, we've had a little preview of it. What I anticipate is the majority of it is something the airport's going to have to do. If there's something on there that will require city commission approval, then yes, we would have to go back.
Okay.
But those items might be not as, they might be limited.
Exactly.
Quantity.
So there are going to be recommendations on there that we can implement. You can implement as part of the airport management team.
Correct.
We can agree with as the airport board.
Correct.
That don't require commission
Correct.
approval.
It
Okay.
will require coordination with the users.
Yeah.
And, air traffic control and the FAA, but will not require city commission approval.
Okay. All right. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So also in your packet, you'll notice that the voluntary noise abatement diagram has been modified slightly. And I want to thank Jacob for doing that. And what he did is he updated the traffic pattern, the depiction of the traffic pattern flight paths. They're more rectangular in nature, which is better depicting, real life than the former. And that was just to kind of really help residents more than anything understand that, this is more typical of what you might see. You also added a disclaimer on there that I think better speaks to the community as far as, hey, this is not exact in nature. This is just recommended. And so I think that was just something we did in the intermediate, prior to any recommendations. We just felt we could update that. Like I said, we continue our discussions with local pilots and flight schools as needed. And that's pretty much all I have on noise.
Okay, thank you. What we're going to do is we progress, and I asked for this the last meeting that we had. We're going to, at the end of each section, we're going to have an opportunity to ask questions if we have questions, okay? Instead of them going through the whole airport report and then trying to write questions down, and I've got one, okay? The activity that we had this past week with the surveying that was going on in 1129 being the only active runway, our neighborhood Facebook page blew up in Inlet Shores. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to use the city website and the communication, because you can go on the website and sign up for notifications. I get the police log and I get this and that, from the city. But if there was some way for the city to say, hey, we're doing some routine maintenance at the airport, or we're doing this at the airport, and we're going to be limited to 1129 for the next couple of days, is there a way to maybe communicate that in advance so people don't get surprised by the fact that every airplane is coming in their back door? Okay. Is there...
I think so.
Can you guys just take a look at that?
Yes, we will.
And see if there's an
I think-
opportunity there, or if it makes sense. We don't want to create something that sends the hordes, screaming. But if we can do something where rational people can go, oh, okay, they're doing something over there, that explains the extra noise for a day or two and be on about their business instead of getting all angst about it.
Yes, and so we'll speak to the public information officer about that and how we can better get information out. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, because it took me half the day before I figured out what was going on, because it was real obvious to me that we had a lot more traffic over Inlet Shores than we normally did. Okay. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh,
I disagree with doing that.
you disagree?
I disagree with doing that because it's going to open up a Pandora's box of somebody's going to go on the website and say, an airplane flew over the house today. How come it flew over my house today? How come it wasn't on the website that they were going to be flying over my house? I don't know. It just opens up more work and for something that is obvious. But that's just my opinion.
Well, you guys talk about it and consider the input from here. Other thoughts from Celeste? Do you have a thought on that?
Well, unfortunately, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with Gary. when you have the little worms walking around and then all of a sudden the ants come and they don't know that the ants are coming to the worms, then, you know, it's like, oh my God, why did that plane fly over here? And why did this happen? And why did that happen? And if you remember a couple of times we had back where we had all the people that were in here that were upset about the noise. And when we started doing the noise study, remember we had the guys and everything?
Right.
And so the interesting thing that I found out was that some of the people that were being nasty about the airplanes flying over was because there was maybe 2 times that the flight flew over their house in 3 months or something like that. And they were livid because of that. But people that don't have airplanes and they don't understand an airport and what the airport is for, besides the fact of people coming in here to see us and having a good time in New Smyrna Beach and enjoying themselves, you know, sometimes you got to take the good with the bad. And I just think that a lot of people that are out there, you know, if they have a flat tire and somebody laid it, you know, it's your fault because you were I was in the city or I was at the airport and I had the flat tire because of you. So it's just stuff that, I don't know, to me it's a common sense thing, and people are just people, and that's just how things happen.
The only comment I would have to that is with 725 shutdown for the surveying, and 1129 is the only, it was really heavy traffic during that time. It was a dramatically different neighborhood experience than what we normally have.
Yeah.
And I was just suggesting that for situations like that, you might consider putting something out, not every time we have to change a light bulb on a taxiway or something.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's for something that was that kind of couple of days of impact,
Right.
because not just an hour or two, but we
Right.
had 2 or 3 days in there where everything, one right after the other was, and I'm just trying to
Sure.
think about it, and if
Yeah.
it makes sense, consider all the input here, and if it makes sense, and talk it with the city communication
Yeah.
people to see if they agree it makes sense, and then come back and let us know what you're gonna do.
Sounds good.
Is there such a website that, for example, you know, when that happened, we could have put it on the website or Facebook or something and saying,
There's
hey, we're going to use this airport, this
Social
particular?
media, and also I think there's alerts the city sends out.
Okay,
So I think they have to be signed up,
Yeah,
you know,
if you
for
go to the
it.
city
so-
website and sign up for notifications,
it'll tell you.
they'll send it to you.
Okay.
And I get it. So, we'll see.
We do have upcoming construction projects, so it'd be a good time to maybe test it out. February, March, there'll be more activity that might be a little bit unusual, you know? But it is interesting to note, like I have in this noise report, if you look at the percentage of the time that it actually flies over this neighborhood, it's less than 1%, generally, 1% of the time. So we have bad days, but if you put it in perspective of that particular neighborhood might not see as much traffic as some of the other neighborhoods do on a regular basis. So I think you made a good point about, you know, something out of the ordinary. So we'll definitely look into it and come back, and we'll be prepared to talk about that at our special meeting
Okay.
on March
Sounds good.
7th.
Appreciate it.
So we'll make a note to make sure. we do that.
I may be backing up a little bit, hopefully just a tiny bit. In the recommendations, when you're talking to the contractor that's doing the noise survey, are you allowed to give him recommendations before he goes in front of the city commission?
Well, this
I mean-
whole time we've discussed, I mean, you know, he's going to share the recommendations that the city made or the community members made. You know, they surveyed, you know, people made recommendations like moving the airport. And so all of that is in there. It's not just the ones that make sense. He's kind of said, he's divided into categories where say, okay, these recommendations actually you can do. These ones may be tough, but you could do it. And then these are just not viable at all. And so that's where we kind of have a starting point at. So yeah, we've had feedback back and forth, so it's not like, complete surprise.
Okay. The only reason I bring it up again is that when it goes in front of the city commission, that there's a recommendation that, and we brought this up before, but there's a recommendation that the realtors disclose that they're moving into an area where there's an airport. We tried that many, many years ago, and 2 big realtors in town shot it down right away because, of course, it's going to hurt their sales, in quotations. But I would like to see that as a big recommendation. But I just wanted to throw that in there.
Noted. Anything else on noise? And we'll move on.
Good.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone in the audience and the board members. So next, capital improvement projects. We kind of go through this each time, but slowly making progress and updates so that you all can see that and have any questions based on those. And then after this slide, I'll stop for some questions because I know it's kind of some meat and potatoes of some of this report. And then we'll move on from there. So backup AWAS, good news there is that they have the parts and they've come out for a site visit. So our next step for that is the company RVA that's going to be installing it. They're going to be coming out scheduling it sometime in the next 60 days to actually install the system. So hopefully get that finished up, wrapped up here soon and put that behind us. Taxiway Alpha reconstruction, we will look to have a pre-construction meeting in the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner. And then we will hopefully start construction on that potentially the end of February, maybe the beginning of March. But that's, these things can change, and we've seen that with many other projects. But that's currently the estimates on that. That one we did recently go through a phase meeting with the tower and our consultant to show him kind of what we anticipate as far as changes in the ground traffic and air traffic, because there's going to be a period of time where the Bravo Alpha intersection will be closed. There'll be a period where runway 2 cannot be used. So there's going to be some changes, and I think Arvin was kind of alluding to some of the things we have coming up that might affect flight patterns in a negative way for some and maybe in a positive way for others. And so that'll be something that we work through slowly, but hopefully start getting that completed soon, because that taxiway, I don't know if you've taxied on it anytime recently, it needs the reconstruction. Fuel farm improvement. We've kind of been rescoping some items, namely going from single phase to 3-phase, which a lot of more modern fuel farms nowadays are 3-phase, and that's going to be better in terms of parts we can find, like fuel pumps are easier to find that are 3-phase, and they are direct drive, so you don't have to deal with the belts. So hopefully maintenance costs will be down. Anyways, we've been rescoping that project, and they're going to send us a new proposal. We don't have a bid, send out a bid date for that yet, but once we know, and if you have any questions on that, hopefully if we get some more information on that soon, you can reach out and we can give you more estimated timelines for that. Admin building design. On January 9th, we had our kickoff meeting, the official kickoff meeting for the new design of the admin building / terminal, kind of GA terminal. It's not going to be any kind of Taj Mahal, and if you'd like, we can send you maybe some potential concepts, but we don't have any elevations as of yet. So we just had a meeting with the architect and consultants and some of the other city staff to determine what might work best in where our current admin building is at, to put something that's more suitable for itinerant traffic that come through. As the airport grows, we wanted to have something that's got room to grow into. So it's going to have some area that's inside the building that's unfinished. Whether or not the city decides that it can be the FBO or whatever happens in terms of FBO moving forward, It'll have an unfinished portion to it, but the other half will be admin. This will help with people that come through the area, have a better welcoming, and, you know, they come in and they enjoy their airport experience through this terminal that, you know, will be funded, help with from the FDOT. So anyways, you know, that's something we're looking forward to doing. It's going to allow us to have better response time on the airfield, because we'll actually have to have airport ops vehicles inside the fence, which will be a huge help when we have issues. Currently, we can't, you know, there's not enough room on the ramp to put vehicles, to park them out there. So this will help with that. So if you want to see, as we get plans and elevations, if you want to come by the airport, we'd be happy to share that with you. And if you have any input on that, that's great, because this is obviously the time to be having that input. You know, when you get to a certain point along the process, you know, that becomes really kind of a lot more daunting task to try and change things. The tower rehab has been going pretty smoothly with Grass Creek Construction. We're very happy with them, and they've worked well with our tower manager. And, you know, I don't know if you've seen the tower recently. We've got a new picture of it at the end, you'll see, with the new paint and lighting and so forth. It does have a new beacon, which have had reports that you can see it flying from Sanford. So LED is the way to go. It's a really nice beacon. Then we've got some other exterior lighting that was changed out, paint. We had new chairs, new carpet inside, all new lighting fixtures inside, new AC units, new doors, hardware. You know, it's been a good project. So we're hoping to finish that up here in the next few weeks and do some final walkthroughs with that. There's still some items to get shipped in and installed, but very happy. Oh, and then the big thing that the tower has loved is the new shades. They're electric shades, so nice thing about that is that there's, you know, less potential for an issue fighting with the shade. Now that they're electric, they just go up, down, and it helps the tower, and they're very happy with them. I mean, every time I'm up there, I think they mention it, so very happy about that.
You know, if I could just interject, just a reminder, this was 100% funded.
Yes, 100% funded by the FAA. We're very thankful for their support there. We were one of 2 top towers in the state to receive that money, so us and St. Augustine. So very happy for that. Okay, taxiway Bravo and runway 725 realignment. So Bravo, we're, as you know, we had mentioned with Jim yesterday, and he just mentioned now, there's been some surveyors, and you know, we're getting some cores done on that taxiway as well as the runway, as far as, you know, whatever they need to keep the design process going. And hopefully we'll be getting that project under construction into this calendar year, so the beginning of next fiscal year, and look to get Bravo reconstructed. It'll have some realignment over where it intersects with Delta, because right now you have Delta kind of turns off towards the end of 25, where it used to go all the way down to where the end of runway 20 was. And so that'll be renamed Bravo, as it should be. And then that big kind of football field of pavement in front of the tower will be turned into a proper intersection that the FAA will be also happier with. And then obviously the realignment of 725, where they take some pavement off, realign the paint, all the approach things that can get fixed there that we've, you know, previously talked about. So we're looking forward to that project, just in a sense we can have our night approaches back, and that's the progress there. Runway 725, PAPIs, and then the electrical vault. We've had some funding changes or how we should fund it, but the project itself will still go on schedule. And we were going to focus kind of more on that as we get the Bravo 725 rehab out to bid. But that one should kind of start to happen in the same time frame in terms of construction. But we're going to get new PAPIs on 725, and then the one on is 29. And so one of the PAPIs on the 1 PAPI was already replaced, so we can only get 3 of our PAPIs taken care of now. And then the electrical vault, which will include a new generator for the tower. Not that our generator's in complete disrepair. We've been keeping up on maintenance, but a new generator would be nice in terms of lower cost maintenance and not having to worry about it in a storm. We don't really worry about it now. We do keep up very well the one we have, but it's starting to show its age.
Will that be a swap out or
Complete.
in addition to?
A complete swap. Yeah, they're going to remove this one and install a new one with a new tank and everything.
Okay.
And that would also include an indicator light, hopefully, in the tower where they can see if it's on, because currently they cannot. So that'll just help them in knowing if they're on commercial power or not. And then lastly, we have T-Hanger F rehab, and today and tomorrow they're doing the first 2 hangers of the steel, because we finally got the steel in, which was delayed, which has kind of delayed this project, unfortunately. Supply chain issues are still rampant. And so we're looking to do a couple of hangers between today or tomorrow. And then the north side, we're going to full bore the rest of it starting February 1st and knock out the rest of the north side, hopefully get those tenants back in. We've allowed them to be in there with this delay. We've had some of them move back in off the ramp just to kind of keep their airplane out of the weather that we've been having. And so we're going to be moving them back out for a few days to get the rest of that portion of the north side complete, and then looking to have a pause, the estimated start date for the south side, March 1st, and then a potential for up to 60 days on the south side for that project to be completed. Everything else has been done. It's just we'll look to getting all the purlins completely replaced on both sides so we don't have rust issues on the airplanes anymore. And as far as CIP goes, that's all I have. So if you have questions on those, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
On the admin building, is there what's the next major milestone on the admin building? You guys had a kickoff meeting. I was just wondering in your plan timeline, what's the next major milestone?
The next will be like just a design, like initial drawings, and initial elevation. And at that point, I'd like to bring that to you. And I don't know if we want to do a special meeting because we know we already have so many, but I don't have a date when that should happen, but at that point, we do want to stop and kind of get everybody's buy-in and see what your thoughts are.
Okay.
But they have been out this week, the same company to save on mobilization costs, the same company doing cores for 725 and Bravo, have been getting cores in the parking lot for that project. So that's kind of where they are. I guess that's the current position that they're at.
How does the new admin building compare to DeLand?
So DeLand is about 6,500 square feet with a giant conference room. We went and visited DeLand. We visited John Ife and talked about it, talked to his design process, what he went through with that. We like the style of it in terms of how they have it set up, and ours will be very similar. It'll be smaller though. We're not going to have not looking to have a large conference room like they have. It works great for them and their application. But we're looking to be in the sweet spot of about 4,500 to 5,000 square feet, depending on A, what we can afford, and B, what makes sense for that space. So it'll be very similar. You know, the aesthetic might be different, but as far as the layout, it'll be very similar.
Okay.
Have you guys looked at, in addition to DeLand, other airports, whether they have an FBO in them or whether the city runs fuel out of them? See anything prevails around the state in that kind of?
Yeah, so along my travels, flying around, and then some of Arvin's travels, and along with just reaching out to our consultants and other airports that we've talked to, our size airport, has a lot of the style now is like what you see in DeLand, many of the even other states I've seen, where you come in, you kind of have a lobby area, admin offices are on one side, then you have kind of the amenities on the other side. We don't have, I guess, exact numbers or percentages as to how many have the FBO or don't have the FBO. Smaller airports than us, will run the FBO because they don't have near as many operations as we do. So it's much easier for them. With our staff, we haven't determined yet, the city hasn't determined yet if that's possible for us. But we want to open up, we're going to leave that possibility there with the unfinished portion, whether or not that gets leased out or, if we maintain it, that's remains to be seen. But yes, we have been doing some research and kind of due diligence to see what's other airports have been, using in practice and what we can take from that works best in our application.
I just wanted to ask our control tower representative what he thinks of the refurbishment that we're kind of finishing up now. If you just. Okay.
Yeah, that is one thing I missed. Yeah, the ceiling, so we did have leaks in the tower, maybe, they've been having that almost since it was constructed. So
Okay.
the fact that they've been able to seal that up is a huge thing because obviously we have a lot of water down here, so.
Okay. With the, continuing where I was going with that, with the new lighting, seating, improved visibility, shades, would you say that we have contributed to an improvement in safety in the operation of the tower?
I think it has the potential to be safety related. It certainly makes it easier to see out the windows. Some of the old shades are kind of getting aged, and they cover the entire window surface where before they used to go down the middle bar and you could see wide around it. So yeah, I would say overall the visibility has certainly been enhanced.
Okay, good. All right.
Great.
Anything else on that? Any other questions on that?
It is awesome.
Good. No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, local projects. So these are items that are funded by the airport for various reasons. These items are either needed or, what have you. So T-Hangar E has been one we've been slowly working on, chipping away at. As I mentioned in the past, it did have a rehab a few years back, so it's not eligible for other funding. However, there were items missed or just, not seen, whatever the case may be. So we've been, we did the door tracks last year with concrete. We took the asphalt out, put concrete in, which has been something that has been a positive response from those tenants, at least the ones that I've talked to. And there's still the issue with the purlins, much like an F, but these were not replaced during the rehab project. So we are sourcing the funds and a timeline to be able to do that, hopefully sooner rather than later. But it's not a cheap thing. Steel is certainly not cheap. So that's kind of one of the next items, that larger items. A smaller item that we hopefully will be starting next week, we'll be adding new vertical door brushes to help just seal some of those, other ones have cracked and fallen off and what have you. So we're going to be taking those off and putting in brushes so that way they don't have an issue fighting with the door, but also it does a good job of keeping particles out. These aren't airtight hangers by any means, but we want to try and keep out as much of the debris as we can. So that'll be hopefully something we start next week unless we get delayed for any reason. But that's our current status with T-Hangar E. The maintenance building, the 20 by 50, I showed you the site plan last time. If you've misplaced the site plan, you can reach out to us and I'll give it to you again. We finally got the permit for that. Thank you to the city staff for working hard on that. And working on the requisitions now and hopefully scheduling some of the contractors to start actually constructing that. Hopefully by the next meeting, the actual next regular meeting, we hope to be close to finishing with that so we can move all the equipment into that building and start generating revenue again with that T-Hangar we're currently using. So I'm very happy with that movement. Tammy's done a lot of really great work getting that going. And that's essentially where we're at with that one. Airport ops vehicles, I'll actually just touch on that in the next slide. I meant to swap those. But for the comprehensive building improvement plan, we're working with the consultant, as we think we've mentioned in the past with 1501 Airway where Gary's at, that building needs some help. So that's one that we're working on now to repair what's been damaged by water over the years. And so we're going to be demoing the second floor of that, and then it exposes the inside of that building so we can find what items, structurally the building looks good from what I've been told, so it's just a matter of replacing some items that support it, the main structure of it, and then a lot of the paneling, removing some windows, things of that nature. But that brings me to the fact that we own many buildings. We're kind of an anomaly in airports in that way because many of the airports have more land leases than they do actual ownership of buildings. So, meanwhile, yes, it generates revenue for us. It also creates a workload, which is just something that we have to do. And so with the consultant, we're getting together with our consultant and their subcontractor, which is the architect, to go through each building and create a good comprehensive plan for each building. So not only can we catch up on whatever we're behind on now, but once we're up to par with that, we can then be proactive and do preventative maintenance so that these buildings are, something the tenant feels like they're getting their money's worth for. And, we extend the life of the building as much as possible so we don't have to, spend money on demo. And so that's where that's at. But we really just had a preliminary meeting in that, and that's, we're just slowly working that as we go, and that's amidst all the other things going on. So if you want to go to the next slide, Arvin.
Any questions on that before we move on?
Yeah, any questions on these these couple of items?
No?
No.
Okay. Okay, so we did get a new airport ops truck, and it's still got some things it needs. It's going to have a full light bar on top with a spotlight and a light bar added to the front of it for FOD detection and things of that nature. But it has, you notice the graphics a little bit different than what you've probably seen on the airport vehicles in the past. And we added that to help, the tower see it. They'll see the numbers on it. So if you have a guy if one of our guys calling airport ops, whatever number he is, they'll be able to see it on the side of the truck. And then obviously for other things that, it drives up people, it's more recognizable than just a white truck. So we didn't add much to it, but we added some things to it to make it a little more identifiable. So the particular truck we got was a Ram 2500. It's a gas model. It's got a full-size cab. It can hold up to 6 people. Not that we have a team of 6, so theoretically it could take all of us. Mm-hmm. But so we have that for moving personnel, or if we have somebody on the runways or something to come back to the terminal, we can bring them back. It's got a long bed for equipment and supplies. For hurricanes, that's a huge help. For any kind of natural event, that's a huge help to be able to have the longer bed to put things in the back of. And it's a 4x4 because we don't have a 4x4 other than the small RTV Kubota. So the 4x4 helps. We have a lot of soggy areas out there, and we've had some equipment get stuck. So instead of, trying to call for help elsewhere, we're able to take care of it in-house. And then, as I mentioned, the markings are updated. But along with that, we worked with the tower to have call signs for each of our vehicles, whether it be the trucks, the mowers, the RTV, various things. So I've given them, the call signs with the pictures next to it, and then our guys, which we're still going through kind of an adjustment period, where, they're going to know that instead of, Melvin, for example, being maintenance 1, he is whatever truck. It's like you are in an airplane, you have a tail number, so you become that airplane. You don't just call you by yourself. So we're more in line with how things should be used for comms with the tower, things more uniform. And so that's just what we've been working on. And so far, I think we've had good success with that. Like I said, there's still an adjustment period, but I think it's helped in identifying some of the items when they're out in the field. And I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
Looks good.
Okay.
All right, we'll continue now with the property management section of our report. And I want to talk a little bit about the Airport Master Plan Exhibit A. So we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but the current Airport Master Plan, which came out in 2019, it has a property map, but it's not sufficient to meet the FAA requirements of what they call Standard Operating Procedure for FAA Review of Exhibit A Airport Property Inventory Maps, SOP 3.0. So what happens is when we go to buy land or sell or lease, and we go through our checklist of whether the land is federally obligated or not, because we don't know. Sometimes we don't know because it's unclear with the current information that we have. We have a very complex land records. Our land records is, if you've been here a while at the airport, you know that there's a history of, when the airport was first deeded to the city in like the 50s and 60s and et cetera, there's some cloudy areas there where we're not sure, what land was re-obligated, what was allowed to be sold. So there's parcels. In fact, we have 2 projects right now. So just as an example, Utilities Commission wants an easement for something, and it's very small, and it's in an area that has nothing to do, does not affect the airport. It's down south next to a neighborhood, but nevertheless, it's airport land. It's land that's, owned by the airport. So when we went to the FAA, say, hey, we need this easement, they said, we can't tell you if you can have an easement on that or not. And the burden of proof is on the airport or the sponsor, the city. So this Exhibit A work that's going to be done includes, and I have a scope if anybody wants to see it, but it's very comprehensive and it's complex and it takes about 6 to 8 months. Now it is 90% funded. We're going to wrap it in the taxiway Bravo construction, but we're talking about we can't undertake that till like August or it's like September, October. And then it's going to be about 8 months from there before that's completed. So we have plans to get that done. In the meantime, I have a couple questions on land, and we're doing the best that we can to just try to sort through it by having, a title company or like attorneys, real estate attorneys help us to try to navigate some of this because we can't do it just, if we can do it, but we risk grant assurances if we just make decisions that without the FAA's permission. So. Nonprofit lease update. So you're probably aware that we have 3 nonprofit organizations that lease land from the airport, the VFW, the Garden Club, and the Lions Club. So a question, all 3 of these leases are going to have to go back to the City Commission in the near future. I've already spoken with each. I've spoken with the Lions Club, the VFW, and the Garden Club. And I've let them know that, we're revising their leases. But one of the things that I will be bringing to you in the very near future is I'd like for you to consider and think about is, would you recommend continuing to lease to these organizations? Now, I know the VFW is probably near and dear to our, hearts in terms of these are veterans. This is a very vibrant group. They, contribute. Just considering the airport's military history, I think this is a good cause for us to participate in. The Lions Club is, I think, down to 3 members. They are struggling a lot. We met with them. We don't know exactly, what is going to transpire down the road. But again, I would be looking for your input on this in the near future. Something we'd actually probably take a vote on. I'd like to know what your feedback is. Same thing with Garden Club. Garden Club has been around a long time. Again, they lease land from the airport, but none of these organizations are paying anything more than $10 a year. And when that happens, the FAA audited us last year and came and said, you have to provide justification for this. They don't typically we have to charge fair market value for any non-aeronautical use. And so we have to be fair. Even though these are nonprofit, they will allow extenuating circumstances for us to lease at a low rate, but they consider their current leases basically null and void because they aren't in line with FAA guidelines. RFP, or request for proposal for the land lease. So right now we're waiting on a revised scope from Kimley Horn, who's a consultant that does perform due diligence work. Chris Edwards, who spoke at a previous meeting, he's kind of outlined the details of what we're trying to accomplish. He's looking into possible grant funding right now, but I recommend that I think we need to probably set aside some funding in next year's budget for this work to get done. So this will really allow us to know when we put out an RFP for land use, like we did last year, or I think it was 2 years now, and we didn't have any bites at all. Well, one of the challenges is we're advertising land for lease, but the prospective lessees or business investors, they don't really know what they can put there, because we haven't done the due diligence of what, where would power come from, what environmental issues are there, what are the setbacks, all those things. And so by doing this due diligence, from a company like Kimley Horn that'll help us understand that better, and then we'll be better prepared when we go out for RFP. The whole goal is, like Jacob mentioned earlier, we have all of our eggs in one basket. Revenue is mainly coming from property, like all airports. But we don't have a lot of land leases. We have a lot of buildings that we're leasing, and that's a lot of overhead, that's a lot of risk, that's a lot of repairs. So we'd like to spread out that risk a little bit and actually enter into more land leases with companies and businesses that will turn around and develop that property and then build their own buildings that they would maintain. It's a lower return for us, but it also is a lot less risk. So
I don't know if it was your previous job in Daytona, but whoever the big hangar tenant was there, they came to New Smyrna one time wanting to lease land and put up a nice FBO, I'll say small jet center, and that got shot down right away. Why, I don't know. But that's what you're talking about, is to have somebody come in and lease the land and build the building.
Yeah, it could be not necessarily an FBO, but it could be, somebody who wants to build hangars or whatever their business might be. Hopefully aeronautical, but we have land that's not, non-aeronautical, industrial, a little, not a lot, but some. So long-term goal is to, make the best use of that land. We don't have a lot of it left, but what we do have left, make wise decisions with it. Especially when we're signing 30-year leases,
Do we still get our, whatever it was, 40 or 50 grand from the sports complex every year?
Yes, we get fair market value for sports complex, maintenance operations, police, fire, skate park. Am I missing anybody? Borrow Pit, which is like that lake just south of, who else am I missing? Mosquito control. So yeah, we do have some land leases, but yeah, we are in need of more hangars in New Smyrna, larger, like more box style hangars. And we can only build T hangars, so fast because we have to wait for funding opportunities. And we have to balance that between, hey, we need a taxiway or we need some ramp or so. Hangar inspections.
So,
And then
just before we jump off of that, so the block of land that's down there behind the hangars, the T hangars now, behind the police department, that was, we looked at one time we looked at here with the 6 or 7 plots that were there, and an RFP actually went out on that, and that didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything, and we think, rather than just roll it back out, we've been ready to roll it back out with revised language, but we've also realized that, hey, there's also question marks on that. We know that what backs up to that is some wetlands.
Yeah.
So how close are those wetlands? Is it still possible to build? What's possible? How much land is really there?
Okay.
And that's what we don't understand.
All right.
So
So is there a target for timeline for having this, rescoped and the RFP reissued?
right now we're at the mercy of, two things. The money that is set aside for doing this work is not coming from the airport. It's coming from the Economic Development Department of the city. So it was kind of like a free, a win-win for the city and also for the airport. When the initial scope came back, the initial proposal came back, it was over $100,000, which was a lot for the economic development budget. That's almost their entire budget. So he had a little difficulty with that. He asked for a revised scope, which we are now waiting on, and he's also looking at funding sources, see if there's funding anywhere else. In the meantime, we're exploring the idea that maybe we need to set aside some money if this doesn't happen for a budget, because we're already in a budget season already discussing, because our fiscal year would begin October 1st. So maybe there's some money that can be set aside from the airport standpoint, since we stand to, benefit from this the most.
So this one is still being stirred and
Mm-hmm,
pending a timeline.
yeah.
On the nonprofit lease update, or who owns the Lions Club building and the Garden Club building?
So that organization, the Lions Club organization, which is like a national organization, they own the building. So the Garden Club struggled to find the deed to their building, but they have records that show, I think it was one of their members' husband, like, I don't know, 30 years ago.
It might have been Jack and Dottie Bolt, because she was very, very big into the Garden Club years ago when they were alive. But I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't.
So they're you know, they have a very active,
So they own the
Club.
buildings, and it's just a matter of
The land.
what the land is leased to them for? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I had that straight. Thank you.
but I wanted to make sure that before it goes to city commission, since this is airport land, that we had some direction from the advisory board on this as well. I'm not asking anybody to make a decision or anything today. We have more information to provide you before we can, you know, discuss this further, but I just wanted to kind of bring it up. That this is a topic of focus. Hangar,
Excuse me,
Sure.
when I moved here 15 years ago, I'd lived in a couple of different states and I owned hangars. In the very situation you're talking about where I leased the land from the city for 20 or 30 years and I owned my own hangar. And I asked at the time when I moved here and they said, absolutely not. We wouldn't consider doing anything like that. Is that off the table?
no, but we have, and maybe we have an airport layout plan, which I'm sure you're familiar with, or familiar with it, that every airport has. And so there's certain areas that are dedicated for, you know, for development. They've already been earmarked for that.
Right.
But it's a matter of, we have to still go through the city processes of RFP and all that. So we've identified a few key parcels that we would like to analyze further to see what can be built there before we just say, hey, you know, and throw another RFP out there just kind of into the wind. We'd really like to have it more thought out. And
I'm remembering now, that was the problem, is that these parcels had specific requirements for job opportunities and other stuff that
Correct.
went with them.
Yep.
That kind of
Yes.
limited who would actually be interested in buying one of those parcels because they want it for a hangar.
right,
Right. Okay.
right. And we've addressed that issue, but take it a step further and realize we need to understand what that land can and cannot be used for, especially since it's so wet. And there's also historical component of the airport with the Menorcan ditch that runs through it, right through the airport. So there's complications to everything.
And plus we have more than just like the property that you mentioned. There's, like you said, several parcels, and I think if you misplaced it, the last meeting, I think in the packet there's mentioning of some parcels that were the first kind of quote unquote phase, but that might be broken down into two more phases. But, you know, to your question, there are other parcels where maybe one singular corporate hangar could be built rather than like over there. It shows multiple, but even that could be, you know, it's a matter of being creative with it because, you know, you may not have, there's not a lot of people out there that can just go build 6, you know, 80 by 80s or 100 by 100s or whatever. So that's why we're opening up the RFP for a true, you know, what proposals do you have? And we've had people stop by and they have their ideas. But as far as proposals go and who's got the will behind it, you know, to make that happen. So that's why we're trying to get the homework done, make the parcels to be as shovel-ready as possible and lease-ready as possible so that they know exactly what they're getting into and they can make the most accurate proposal moving forward so the city and the airport can make the best decision for, we're fortunate enough we don't have, you know, these 50, 100-year leases or whatever, land leases that we have issues with. You know, we're fortunate in that. So that's the benefit. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any of that property that you have available, is that the capability of having a hotel on it?
I don't know. That's a great question. Good.
I was just curious because if we had a hotel there, that we could bring in more people because, you know, they like to fly here. They have their own airplane. They want to stay somewhere. and they could have a convention there or whatever. I just wondered if it was big enough
That's
because,
the purpose of this,
Yeah.
our due diligence, to see
Yeah.
what can fit
That's where
on
we're trying to
on
go.
what.
I mean, I suggested that a long time ago, and
And there's
To
there's
someone.
precedence for it. If you've ever been to St. Simon's, you know, they've got that hotel right on the ramp, basically. They might have different, you know, I'm sure they have a whole slew of different reasons as to how that maybe could happen, but, you know, certainly something to explore.
All right, so hangar inspections. So hangar inspections will begin February 4th. I did want to ask Chair Dempsey if you prefer to break this into 2 days or all at once. I know you're going to plan to accompany me on these hangar inspections, T-hangar inspections.
I was just grabbing a calendar, okay.
The 5th?
February the 5th?
Oh, I'm sorry, the 5th. We can do it the 5th and the 6th, or break it up into, you know, or just do it all in one day. With 72, sometimes it's easier, depending on how long it takes, because sometimes you can get tied up with one, because there can be a lot of, you know, things that we're seeing. If we get a good pace, we could, you know, probably spend a couple hours one day and a couple hours the next day.
are you going to photograph what's inside those like we did with Adam?
We take very good detailed records. We go through, we photograph each one. We see what's inside it. We're looking for things like safety, lease compliance, hangar use. You know, what are they using it for? What are they storing? Things like that. Sometimes it's fairly quick. You can go in a hangar and see this guy keeps an immaculate hangar. His aircraft is here. It's obviously being used. He doesn't have any fuel in here. I mean, some people keep a very clean and tidy hangar, and other times you'll walk in there and you can barely walk around. So those are the ones that take a little bit longer. So
I remember. As far as myself participating in that, I'm good that week, not the week before or the week after, but that week I'm good through most of
Okay.
that week. So however it
Yeah.
works out best for your requirements
It's nice.
that week.
It's nice to break it up into 2 days, just so we're not
Yeah,
rushed.
yeah,
And then we can take our time, and we don't feel like we've got to get through it. And there's 72, so
Yep,
you know.
I'm good for Monday through Wednesday of that week, whatever days you want to put down.
Any questions on that property management slide, and I'll move on to the next.
Just one question, going back to what you said the FAA required justification on these leased properties to nonprofits. And as you said, we could probably work up a justification for that for the VFW 4250 pretty straightforwardly. But because of the fact that the Lions Club building is pretty much shuttered nonstop, I haven't seen anybody in there in years. The Gardens Club occasionally does a plant sale or a
They
weekend
do a
sale.
holiday thing.
Holidays.
Yeah,
kind
they make a lot of
things there.
wreaths and sell. Make
But
money.
I'm just curious, is there a line to a justification in there anywhere at all for those two? Or is it, we need to be focusing on how we're going to communicate to them, here's what's fixing to happen?
Well, ultimately, it will go to the city commission for approval or not.
Okay.
But I'd love to know, hear what, your recommendations are.
Okay.
Because that will carry weight, I think, what we ultimately do.
Okay, so is that something that you want us to send some feedback to Tammy on with an email
We'll
or?
provide, we will send more additional information to you, kind of a summary of each one.
Okay,
And then if you have questions, call us, or we could set up a meeting or anything like that. And then, when we actually have the next meeting, I don't know if we're going to be able to get to it in that special meeting, but probably have to be April.
Okay.
Not that far away. By then, I would like to, we can have a vote.
all right. Just wanted to have a path for bringing that to closure.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Can we actually, even though, I'm not a veteran and I'm not a Lion Club person, could we actually go and look at those buildings
Sure. Yeah.
and see exactly, I know where all these buildings are, and I know what the Women's Club looks like, but I sure would like to look at the VFW and the Lion Club, especially if there's only three
Yeah.
particular.
And when we would invite them to come and probably speak if they wanted to or anything. we can do that. I think we can discuss that further. So they could present to us why, present to you,
Yeah.
what they're doing and why, we should continue to lease from them. I think that would be a good exercise. Because at the very least, they're going to have to provide that to us in writing for us to even get the FAA approval. So I think it'd be a good exercise for them to do and just, yeah.
Good point, Celeste.
Just remember, it's difficult to unring a bell,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
All right, so our fuel contract, we had a recent request for proposal because our fuel contract with Titan was ending. 6 fuel providers presented. It was really a great turnout. We had all of them, and I think, put their best foot forward. The selection committee ultimately decided to select Titan Fuels again. Their pricing was very good, was very competitive. And I think that's going to continue to provide value to the tenants and the users. In the upcoming week, we're going to be meeting with our representative to review plans to place a new fuel sign by the fuel farm. The current one is very old and needs to be updated into something more modern. And that was part of their proposal to us, is that they would pay for the installation of a new sign.
Do they maintain and upgrade the fuel farm, or is that the airport's responsibility?
It's the airport's responsibility. However, they do provide funds for whatever we want to use for, whether it's for marketing or for whatever, or we can put it towards the fuel farm. So yes. Any questions on the fuel provider?
Do we ever run out? I mean, how many times do we run out of fuel?
So we have, on a few occasions in the last few months, been out of fuel at the self-serve tank because of problems with supply and the driver running late, et cetera, for like a couple hours. We never were totally out of fuel. We had the FBOs had fuel or whatnot in the truck, but it was very close several times. That was maybe 6 months or so. And since then, they had a change of staff. They worked on some things. We worked on alternative terminals, et cetera. But there was some issues. It was no matter who you were, whether it was Titan or AvFuel or anybody, they were all having problems because of the terminal in Tampa being shut down. So we were getting fuel from North Carolina, Panama City, wherever we could get it. And so because it was coming from that far away, there was a few times when
But
we were
everybody
either
else
out-
was too.
Everybody was in the
had
same boat.
problem, yeah.
The difference being is that we probably run through more avgas than most airports. Some airports are running through more. But when it comes to avgas, we're doing 8,000 gallons a week, which
So
is...
Epic buys their fuel from us?
Yes, so the city has the fuel farm, owns and maintains and controls the fuel.
Okay.
What's your best contract you've ever had?
Say again?
What's your best contract that you've had? I have the reason I'm asking the question is I have the capability of providing you fuel. So, from someone, but I'm just curious.
Well, we have to, we will through the RFP process. You have to go through that. We can't, and once we know we have a contract with them, so.
So we're committed for 5 years.
Yeah.
That's okay. I just was curious because of the factor that, like we did have a problem a while back, and so that's the only reason why I want to know. It doesn't hurt to have more
I hear you.
people in your pocket.
Well, when it comes to aviation fuel, you want to buy it from a brand. You want the contract in place because when it comes to fuel quality and those types of things, it's very strict.
Yeah, no.
We think there's multiple fuel suppliers, but when it comes to the right fit for our needs, I think the selection committee did do a good job and picked. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Sun Trail. So I want to thank the board and Vice Chair Starley for your support and efforts a few weeks ago. Ultimately, the City Commission, they decided to move forward, as we know, with the West Trail alternative. They made public comments that they would pledge to take considerations not to impact the airport, and that would be addressed during the design phase. The dates have not been announced for when they would begin design, but the grant application was submitted on 12/20. We expect the grant award sometime in July. We will continue to monitor this. We have communication with DOT, FAA, everybody's aware. We've made everybody abundantly aware of the potential impacts, and we've had repeated communication from different parties that they will make sure this doesn't happen. Or that it doesn't impact the airport in a negative way. This is a long time away, though. So memories can be short. It could be 5 years before this is constructed. So we're just gonna have to keep a close eye on it. I'm included in a department head meeting every 2 weeks. Our CIP meeting is what we call it, capital improvement projects. Every project that's going on in the city, we're aware of, we can see everything else that's going on, so we have to pay attention. Sun Trail is one of those items. We're going to continue to pay attention to it as it progresses.
What happened when, so, it was a big thing, with the city and all that, and so what about the safety, and what happened when we sent the information to the FAA about, how they had laid it out, and they picked the west side as when you're coming in over the water and you're coming down, not Turnbull Bay, when you're coming in for a landing, you're getting kind of, so I was just curious what was their reception on that? I mean, how did they say anything? I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so what I understand now, so the phase that we're in now is that this has not been designed. When they get to the design phase, that's the point in time when they will be looking at those things. And certainly the FDOT intermodal office, who's responsible for the Sun Trail, their office is right next door to the aviation office of the FDOT. So I'm hopeful that they'll continue to communicate on this issue. They assured me, not in writing, but over the phone, that they would make sure that, because intermodal does include aviation too, so it would be counterproductive for them to be doing something that would be counter safety.
Right.
The FAA is aware as well. They would be concerned if it moves forward, but at this point, they just want to be kept in the loop of how it develops.
Okay.
That's all I have on that, if you have any comments or feedback.
So I'm left with the impression that they understand that the FAA would have to be completely involved in anything that might obstruct the required displays and safety zones around
Yes.
the airport.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we're getting to a couple slides of other business. One being, we've had some, just a little backstory to this. We've had some tenants, and it's an idea that we've kind of bounced around in the office as well. But we've had some tenants come in, T-hanger tenants come in, and they would love to, they've mentioned something like a bulletin board and maybe some kind of online media to be able to talk to each other. It's, even though you're within range of all of each other, you're all here at different times, and even when I'm out at the airport, it's real mix match, or who's going to be there, and maybe nobody's there, whatever. So an airport app, it'd be an NSB Airport branded app that you could download from Google Play or the Apple App Store, that you log into, and you can get really intricate with these apps. But for the purpose of what we might use it for, would be pretty simple. It would just have a home function with announcements that could be made by the airport, and it would have a forum so that tenants could log in. They would create an account through the app, and they could log in, and they could post, they want to talk to some other kind of, let's say they're an aerobatic pilot, is one example. We've had somebody that's an aerobatic pilot. They want to meet the other aerobatic pilots at the airport or in the area, for that matter. It doesn't just have to be New Smyrna Beach tenants. It can be local to the area that want to keep in tune with what's going on in New Smyrna. And, maybe they want to get rid of a workbench. Maybe they've got a particular tool, whatever they want to sell. And, they would be kind of more zoned into the area rather than trying to do Facebook Marketplace or things of those nature. So this app could potentially be a bit good help. It could grow into other things, i.e. a portal that tenants could submit work tickets for their hangars if they have an issue, and it would go right into an email that we have set up that better categorizes things that would be for maintenance, work orders from tenants. And they would submit it, it would go right into there, we would see it, and put our guys on it. So, again, you can be as simple or complex with this as you want, but I would think, just to start out, if we were to do this, we would do something fairly simple, test it out, see how well it does, see if it's received. Arvin recently did a survey, which we're still waiting to finish up some results on that. And part of that survey for the tenants was about the app. And if we get enough good feedback, we can look to creating this app and put it into essentially a beta that would be released. And we could go from there in terms of growing it. And hopefully that would be an asset to the community of the airport and to Spruce Creek, DeLand, Daytona, whatever, where, we could just help connect people without having to use like a Facebook or an Instagram where there's a whole never slew of things that can go on with those. So anyways, it's just an idea that's been brought up. Those are just previews. So what you see there on the white square is just what it would look like on your phone. As you see the app, that's a placeholder logo until we maybe someday have a full, a long-term logo to have. And then the rectangle on the right you have would be the inside of the app. And it scrolls much like a Facebook. You could scroll down so we could put out, hey, by the way, like this week we have a bunch of trucks and trailers out there that we leased space to. You would say, hey, be advised you're going to have this. Yes, we can send that out in an email, and we can still do both where it'll send out the announcement and email together. It's just that this would be something so people go on quicker. Maybe they don't reach their email every day, whatever the case may be. The app, you just pull it up, bam, you got it. And then, like I said, you have a forum with different things, different subjects and conversation strings people could talk to each other with. So anyways, that's potential for an airport app. On the right there, we have our man, Craig Schultz. He comes from Minnesota. We recently hired him a few weeks ago. He's got good building inspector background. He worked on a farm, so for many years, he grew up on a farm, in fact. So he's got great experience for what we need, and he's got a positive attitude. And if you see him around, say hello. He's a really, really friendly guy. And he builds Audis, so he's got some pretty cool things he does outside of that. So yeah, really happy to have him. And if you see him, he's a great guy.
So what's his focus on the team? What does he focus on?
So he's maintenance, not maintenance, airport ops, much like our Tom and Melvin.
Okay.
He's airport operations. So he'll be doing fuel. I'm trying to get him certified on fuel next week. I have to go through, it's like 2 or 3 days of training I needed to do with him. He's been currently learning how to be on the airfield. He doesn't have any aviation experience, which many times in the jobs that people that apply, we don't have aviation backgrounds. So we're starting from square one, like with a new flight student. So, teaching them how to speak on the radios, and that's kind of the first step, and getting him familiarized with the airfield. And next will be the fuel training so that he can be in line with our other airport ops guys. And, he's good on the maintenance side. He has a good working knowledge of those items. So, yeah, it's been a great ad.
I'm just going to add that all of our guys now are the same. We did have our guys categorized differently, but we changed that last year. So all of them can be cross-trained, and so they all can do each other's jobs, and we can better cover each other, especially on weekends or when somebody's on vacation. So our goal is to have everybody know how to do everything.
Just a question to the other board members that on the app, have you guys seen this before with anyone?
No.
what does that look like to you two guys?
So be interested in it.
Yeah,
Yeah, good.
Good idea.
okay. Just
Cool.
some feedback.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that run into any of the sunshine laws or anything with, I mean, would that app have to be made available to any citizen that wanted to get it? Or would it be just for airport tenants that are stakeholders? Or
Great question.
how do you figure that out
It's a
when?
great question.
Yeah, that's the questions we want to hear, because obviously this is just something we've just put a preview of, just to see what's possible. And now we can ask those questions to see, how do we implement it if we do, and what are...
We might be able to
Any kind
find a way to sign up, you have to be a tenant, or, just because like
Oh.
now, you can't gain access to.
Or we
the
could make
airfield.
it a local, I mean, it
Now,
doesn't, we
there
can
could
see.
be a public,
Or
because
it
it's not
could-
public.
It would
it's-
also be helpful for the board to kind of have a little bit of more of a feel for the temperature and the pulse and the activities that our lessors are interested in.
Right, and that's the idea. It helps us hopefully better connect, because email
Yeah.
is only so good. So inside of the app, that's the great thing. There's so many things you can do. But in terms of who can see what, you can manage
Yeah.
and say, these whatever emails are allowed to do this and see this and whatever. So you can, much like anything, the first setup is always the most, big thing. But maintaining, I think, could be...
I think it has
Yeah, we'll have to,
real
we'll ask
potential. I think it has real potential, but
legal
you have to
questions, yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, we'll dive into that. We just wanted to kind of get a barometer on that, so we could kind of...
any other thoughts like that? Because that's a good one.
Well, the other thing is like, let's say somebody comes here, they want to come to New Smyrna. They have their own airplane. They want to fly in here. Then they can figure out stuff off that app and say, oh, well, okay, this airport's got this runway, and so that could be really helpful, especially for tourists. I mean,
Right, you can add, tourism things to it. Like I said, you can get very complex with these things up to a point it can accept payments
Yeah.
for things. I mean, not to say that we could reach that. There's other city limitations as far as that goes, but, there are a lot of options, yes.
yeah, you do have a lot of options with that.
I think the app is a good idea, but I think it's a very slippery slope for board members to be on it and the sunshine law, because I could write something on there and somebody from the board could just write me back. All right, that's a blatant
Or
violation.
Maybe it's
But-
just read only.
But I could also be on that app and write something, and my neighbor across the street can write it, and it may be my opinion. So it's a slippery slope.
Right, and it's the same with social media, you're right. So
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, it's the same thing. And so other airports, they do social media, different tools, and we can too. It's just a matter of, like navigating it. So like you said, it's a matter of seeing what capabilities does it have, what limitations does it have, and then trying to, go through it the right way. But this is just simply here's what we can possibly do. Let's figure out the best way to do it, and then...
I was only looking at it from the perspective of it being another resource for board members to understand better the concerns of the folks that lease hangars and use our airport and buy our fuel and stuff like that.
And to your point, you could
Just-
make it that board member emails, for example, they wouldn't be able to comment.
Read
So
only.
you can
Yeah.
give restrictions or
So-
whatever.
Just thinking out loud a little bit, because it's a brand-new concept,
Right.
and we're just talking about it a little bit.
Yeah,
How
no,
are we
that's-
doing on
that's
time,
good
Tammy?
feedback.
Are we okay?
And I'll share the results of our little survey that we did. It was the first time we've done a survey. I focused on the T-hanger tenants right now, but we do need to do an airport-wide one. But it was the first trial. And we just asked questions like, how often do you fly? How do you find the runways? How do you find the taxiways? And just kind of rate our communication. And on the survey itself we did have a question of, if we had an app, would you use it? Those types of things.
Awesome.
So it was our first little start. So I'll share those results. We put that out about a week ago. Last I checked, I had about 25 responses. So, it's a matter of trying to get people more engaged. The other reason that we like the app idea, or some way to communicate, we keep having people say, hey, how do I get connected? I think you already mentioned that, but they seem interested in getting together and to having a sense of community at the airport. And so, and it's specifically T-hanger tenants, that we're talking about, so.
Yeah, this isn't, 14th century where we don't have like a church, door to put things on, so.
I think that was great dialogue about that app concept. You threw it out here and we listened and everybody had some thoughts on it and we gave
That's
you
great.
some feedback. So
Yeah, thank you, I've got
I
those
think
notes.
that was good. That's what we like to be able to do here. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Good feedback.
All right. So this slide is again, for some feedback and future feedback. I was talking with Gary yesterday. He had some feedback that I've taken some notes on, and I've asked him to look through our NSB Airport history tab. But for the airport website in general, nsbairport.com, which I'll show you in the last slide for the QR code, or I just want the link. But just if you have time, peruse it. If there's things you want to see added or taken away or changed or what have you on the various pages, you see the tabs there at the top. If you highlight the About EVB, it'll have different sections to it, like the economic impact study, things of that nature. But just please go through that. And if you know anybody that has, Gary's got a plethora of NSB Airport history in his own head and throughout his building. And if you know anybody else that has more information, and we'd love to have it to try and build up that page as much as we can to teach people really, about the history of the airport and what it's accomplished, and helps kind of build a foundation of what more you can accomplish with it in the future. So anyways, that's just a tidbit that I had, if you do have anything, feedback.
Well, I did have the original photos I was talking to you about the other day, and my mistake, I took it down to, was it Gary Luther at the time? And he wrote a New Smyrna Beach history book, or he provided photos.
Okay.
And I opened up his book when he published it, and there's all my photos in there that I asked him to make copies for me, with him taking the credit of the photos.
Oh.
But anyway, if I can't find the photos at the hangar, I know he duplicated them inside one of the books.
Okay,
But
cool.
they are really cool photos.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, thank you. So anyways, that's all I had on that one.
Okay.
And there's a picture of the tower that was taken, I don't know, maybe a week or two ago. And so obviously it's kind of like an evening, so you can see the lighting, that new LED lighting on the logo. The painting of the tower reduced some of the yellow in it. It's more just tan, so it helps that logo pop, and it's
It looks great. It
yeah,
really
no, we
looks
love it.
great.
We love it. I'm very happy with it. We're happy that the tower's happy with it. So yeah, this has been a great project, and very happy with the FAA to put their 100% out there.
Great. Awesome.
That's all we got.
Tell me when you're ready for comments or questions.
Now's the time.
We're getting there.
Is there something going on again with the property that Griffiths owned or ended up selling at the end of 220, building the housing development at the end again?
That's the one with the,
Should we wait and do that in AAB member comments down in section 9?
sure.
What'd I do?
Let's wait for section 9 and do that question. That way we get down to the AAB member comments.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Any questions or comments on the presentation?
I think we've taken full use of asking for questions at the end of each section. Okay.
Great, good.
All right, that worked good for me. I hate it when I have to write down questions on the very first thing you talk about and then go through everything and then try and remember what my question was at the end. So I think it worked better for me. Do you guys, did that work? Okay, okay, okay.
I have a follow-up question to that. Would you benefit from sitting down, we do with Jim, but would anybody else benefit from sitting down the day before, one-on-one, and going over this and kind of, they do that, for the city commission, where they go, the day before, because you can't get together in a group, but you can sit one-on-one. And so I just want to open that up to if somebody is interested in doing that, spending an hour together the day before, we would certainly be open to that. Because if it's helpful, it's beneficial. Because I know there's a lot of information that we're just kind of throwing at you. And there's times when I wish we got together more, and there's probably times when you think, hey, we're meeting too much. But there's just a lot of information. And, you each have your specialty. So it's up to you. And you can say, hey, listen, I've spent enough time on this. I don't want to do any more. I get it. But I just want to open that door. So if you can think about that and let us know if that's something you're interested in.
I do that with the team. Yesterday and prior to every other meeting, we set that up, and it's just to walk through the agenda and kind of making sure we're in sync with where we left it at the last meeting and that kind of thing. So I'm just trying to get the most bang for the buck for the hour or two that we spend here.
Yeah. And we want to try to move things along. I know sometimes that we get on a project, you'll see that it's like, we've been talking about this, seems like a year,
Yeah.
So we're trying to push things along. But anyway.
Okay. Okay, if that ends the airport manager comments, that brings us up to airport advisory board member comments. Item 9.
So then do you want to answer, or does he have to re-ask the question?
I don't believe so. Do you remember his
Yeah,
question?
I wasn't clear where it was that you were talking about. You're talking about the,
It's the departure end of 20,
oh,
right?
Yeah.
I said that right. On the
Okay.
other side of the railroad tracks.
Okay, yeah.
Where Hidden Lakes is. And at one point, the Griffiths owned it, and they sold the golf course, and they were looking to build housing, and then at one point it was assisted living, another point it was hearing, but they were going to build buildings right in the path of 220.
Yep.
And that went on, and then recently I heard that it was still something there was an iron in the fire.
Yeah, so I will look into that to see if anything's developed, but the last I heard was, I looked at their plans and they are building outside of the runway protection zone. However, they're going to be very limited as to how high they can go because we have zoning in place to restrict how high they can go. So
Well,
they shouldn't be able to, but that's another one that is on our radar. Thanks for bringing it up again because I had looked at that several months ago and it's still alive and well, yeah.
We went through it years ago, in fact, when Khalid was still on the airport in his office, and the Griffiths went ahead smartly and hired a retired guy from the FAA that was an expert at noise issues and building issues, but he was using it now outside of his retirement to help people go through all the loopholes of what the FAA was throwing up in front of them. So I just heard that again, and it brought up, a big fight back then.
So we have a list of things that we need to follow up on, and that's one of them.
Okay.
We'll make a note.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tammy.
that was very awful,
Yeah.
that whole scenario.
We have a whole file of all the work that was done on that before. Yeah.
It was something.
That's all I got.
When you talk about leasing land and RFP restrictions, studies that go forward to take a look at that, what requirement or to what degree do you insist that anybody considering purchasing land or leasing land is focused completely on aviation interests? Did that question make sense? What I worry about, obviously our land is the most precious entity that an airport has. And if we're talking about building hangars or somebody building a maintenance facility that's related to aircraft, they're going to be supporters and defenders of the airport. The further away you get from that, and I saw this for years occur in California as airports went away. The further away you get from leasing land to individuals or entities that aren't directly aviation interested or related, the less likely you are to have support from your tenants in terms of what's good and what's bad for the airport.
I think it's a good point. say that the airport compliance manual that the FAA puts out that we are bound to, that is basically the thing that guides us in all these decisions, is very strict on what parts of the property can be leased to whom. So, for example, something that has direct taxiway access, that has to be aeronautical,
Okay.
unless a piece of land has been released from those federal obligations, and then at that point, so there's certain sections of land that are earmarked and that FAA encourages you to use for revenue generation, such as the industrial sections that have no way to access the airport. They're perfectly fine if you lease that to a non-aviation entity, only because, hey, you can get a potentially higher rate of return because you can charge more, because they require you to get at least 12% in that case. So that's okay. But I hear what you're saying, and for sure, our goal has been to really strictly adhere to the FAA's requirements. We want to be in good graces with them. We have a great relationship with them. We get, we receive the benefit of that through funding. And so, great point, and I would say that we 100% will be following that FAA, for aeronautical land will be strictly aeronautical purposes. And then then it becomes, okay, what type of aeronautical business, and that's where the RFP will come into play, that we can really decide. There, hopefully we get competing, hopefully we have 3 businesses and we can say, well, which one makes the most sense for New Smyrna? That's the goal and the hope.
Well, right now, it appears to me that you guys are the gatekeepers on that. I mean, the city development wants to go do their thing, but there still has to be someone that's making sure that we're adhering to the FAA requirements for the use of this land, so we don't get in the way of FAA or FDOT funding in any way.
I think we see ourselves in that way on multiple fronts, not just on what's happening at the airport, but what's happening surrounding that might impact us, whether it's even just day to day, whether it's a crane somewhere that shouldn't be where it is. So we very much see ourselves in that way. So thank you.
Celeste, we missed you with comments,
Oh,
AAB comments.
I'm okay right now.
You're okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff going on.
Okay.
And I just, my big thing is about the Sun Trail. That's, I'm really worried about that. But, we just see what happens. I'm sure that the FAA and people are, I just don't want to see anybody get hurt.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
definitely improving there. My wife goes from our house on Cunningham up to US 1, down to South Street, around the airport, and back down Industrial, and back to our house all the time. That's just her walk. And the South Street sidewalk improved that tremendously.
Yeah.
Okay. But she just likes airplanes, and she likes walking around the airport instead of walking down the road.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so-
That's my only thing, is I
Yeah.
just want to make sure we're safe, and the pilots are safe, and the people that are using
I
that
hear
are
you.
safe. That's really important to me.
David,
Yeah.
any comments from you, sir? Okay. Great meeting, great presentation package, and all great photographs and graphics and everything that you guys put together. Appreciate the work that goes into this, because we know you guys are going nonstop. You got big stacks of construction material out there, and you got people running around like crazy. I mean, when I go and sit in the office with them, it's never dull. There's always somebody coming in and out, contractor, somebody, at any time. But I would like to get a look inside that tower sometime and see what has been done in the tower, and if we could get something set up. And I don't know how you work that out, on what the safety rules and privacy and everything, but we just spent, that was a lot of money that went into that, and would just like to get a look at what we paid for, okay? Even though it was grant money, and we still, if that's a possibility, would anybody else be interested in getting together and maybe just get a walkthrough? You tell us when the least busy time is for your guys, and we go and we just do a walkthrough, okay?
And
Jim and I can get together, make a schedule.
Okay,
You want to do that, Jim?
okay, awesome, thank you.
Would all of you want to do a tour?
Oh, sure, why not?
Gary, no?
Sure.
Yeah,
You want to probably break it up? Well, we'll figure that out, yeah.
Yeah,
they'll have
there's,
to do one at a time.
figure out how you want to do it. We can do it half of us at a time or individually, whatever works best and meets their safety and privacy and every other protocol that I'm sure the FAA has got for the inside of that tower.
For our protocol, we'll have to do one at a time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That works, whatever.
Okay.
Just figure it out. All right. And with that, are we ready to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
We're
You want a
good?
third?
hit the hammer.
I didn't know if we had to vote or not. We're adjourned.
That's the only time I don't have to do roll call.
Okay. I'm still learning.
Me too.